I like to welcome in Brittany Chibe with Within Without. We're going to be talking about distribution today and specifically around working with distributors like KeHE. Brittany has been working with KeHE for how many years now?
I wanna say, like, 2 or 3 years?
2 or 3 years, so it's a seasoned veteran. So definitely learning around the way, as we were just talking about before. This whole process is a constant learning experience because as you grow, you hit new stages and new problems and new opportunities at the same time. So to get started, Brittany, we'd just love for you to talk about your overall experience with KeHE, any key learnings, really with the goal of how can any brand have a good and growing relationship with KeHE.
Yeah, okay, so, I will say, I guess to start, like, KeHE has actually been a good distributor partner. Like, I know people complain a lot about their distributors, and they're the first one I worked with, and I also started working with UNFI a few months ago, but, I will say KeHE's been really good in the sense that their category managers, um, at least in my experience, really kind of help nurture smaller brands. So like in the breakfast category, the category manager I had when I onboarded, he has now left. But he was one of those people that brought me in, like wanted to meet in person, wanted to help build out like what they call a roadmap. So that you're running promotions, you're, being part of their shows just to kind of get you in front of their retailer customers. And I mean, this was a guy who literally, like, at every KeHE show would come and walk customers to my booth and get them to try the product and, like, get them excited about it. So I don't know, like, how much of your experience depends on who your category manager is, but mine was probably one of the better ones. Um, and I guess to answer your question of like the experience overall, I feel like it's what you make of it, right? Like a distributor, like they're not going to grow your brand for you. Like they give you all the tools, but then you need to go and run with it and execute on it. So I feel like your success with, and this is with anything, right? Like your success with them depends on like not only using what they give you, but like just making it happen. So like they're super transparent and they'll give you like once you open up a warehouse, like Romeoville, Illinois, for example, like they'll tell you like here's the retailers that pull from this warehouse, and then it's really up to you to reach out, make those connections, sell your product in, and continue to build that distribution. So it's like not going to build your brand, but they give you tools to help you.
So Emily asked a question around kind of what tools KeHE has to help promote your brand. Would you say that KeHE, I know those are great examples of the category buyer manager kind of helping and promoting you at the shows just personally. Um,
Yeah.
does KeHE have certain tools that you found that are really good for promoting your brand?
I guess they have a couple of things, but they're kind of expensive. So I don't know. It's like hard to track the ROI on it. I know for like new brands, like when you open up a brand new warehouse, they have this new at KeHE program. So I personally did it for the Bloomington warehouse. It's one of the natural warehouses. I think it was a few $100s, but what that did was it got your product on, I don't know if it was like an e-document or if it was like a printed like booklet, but basically all those KeHE account managers that call on retailers that pull from that warehouse, like they get your information and they are supposed to go to their accounts and try and sell your product in like, hey, this is a new brand at our warehouse, and they're doing this promotion this month, like we think you should give it a shot. So again, like I did it once, I don't know how effective it was. I think we got a couple of accounts from that. And then they also have their advertising program. So they have things like a super special, or just different like off invoice or MCBs, manufacturer chargebacks to use to promote your brand. So like that, you just have to do that. I don't think there's really any way around doing promotions. Um, And then for me, like the shows have been the most beneficial. Um, Not only because, like, yes, there's a fee to go, right? Like you have to pay for your booth, and I feel like the price goes up every year. But you actually like you can take orders at those shows. So like it's a selling show. You can literally make back the cost to be there by selling your products while you're at the show. And for me, like even shows that haven't been like quote successful, like you just never know down the road what'll come from it. Like you can meet somebody at a show and then it could take a year to get your product like at their stores, but I feel like it gives you that first like face to face, and then you can keep following up, wait for the review, and sell it in eventually. So even if it's not like an instant sale, like it's still I think is helpful just to be in front of them. So for me, like if I had to choose where to put my dollars, it wouldn't be their advertising programs. It would be like run promotions, right? Like do a quarterly promotion and then be at maybe one show a year too, if you can afford it. Um, but that's how I think, like, at least for my right, every brand's different, but for my brand, like that's how I've seen the most success with promoting it.
When you're running promotions with KeHE, is there anything you have to do to make sure that those get passed along to the retailers? Do you do any coordination with the retailers on the other side to make sure that they actually will, I guess I should ask, when you do a promotion with KeHE, does that get passed along to the consumer at the retail store, or is it just that they might buy the product for cheaper?
Yeah, so it depends, right? Like KeHE always passes it on. I will say they're really good about that. They don't pocket that money. So whether it's an off invoice or an MCB, they always pass it on to that retailer. Um, it's really up to that retailer whether or not they pass on the promotion to the right like shelf level for the consumer. So there are retailers where, whatever is in the KeHE book for that month, they automatically like push the promotion through to the shelf. But then there's some, I don't know if I can name them, but there's one retailer specifically that's notorious for pocketing those dollars and not passing it on unless you reach out to them directly and say, hey, we're running a promotion. We expect you guys to pass this through to the shelf. Like, here's the shelf price on deal. Um, so I think it just depends, but I think it's sort of like, I don't know. There's certain retailers in the industry that are known for not doing what they're supposed to do, and you kind of just learn about that, whether it's the hard way because your deal doesn't get passed through, or from a broker, or even like I would say with KeHE specifically, like talk to the KeHE account manager that works with that retailer because they will tell you like if any additional paperwork has to be filed or what needs to be done to push it through to the shelf. I feel like that's probably like your best defense is just like go to that KeHE rep for that account and say like, hey, are we good? Like we're in, like book 5 for May, like we're in May promotion at this price. Like what do we have to do to make sure this is reflected at the shelf? So it might just be staying on top of them. So
Okay, no, that's really good to know because I know that's always been one thing that I've wondered about, just making sure things show up on shelf. We've had instances not through KeHE, but with other retailers where we offer the promotion, and then it maybe took 2 weeks for them to actually put it on shelf, and so they kind of inadvertently or may on purpose pocketed the difference for those first 2 weeks before they actually put it on deal. So they
yeah,
were able to benefit from that, which is always problematic for brands. Um,
yeah.
One big topic that everyone always asks about are chargebacks and or and distributor chargebacks. So how do you think about chargebacks and what's been your experience and how do you manage those?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to know, like, going into it that they're inevitable. Like, there's never gonna be well, I guess it does happen, and I'm really joyous when it happens, is, like, when I ship an order and then I get paid 100% for what was shipped. That's very rare. But I think going into it, like, you have to know, and, like, specifically with KeHE, like, they're gonna take off a 1.5% off the top for their marketing fund, right? Like that's in the written agreement, you can't change it. So knowing that that's gonna happen and kind of building that into your price, I think is important. They're gonna take off 2% because they pay in 10 days, which is great. Like I'll give you that discount all day long. I don't want to wait 30 days. And then like whenever you're on promotion, so if you're running an off invoice allowance, let's say, they're going to take that right off your invoice, like right off the top. But if you're running a chart or a manufacturer chargeback, an MCB, um, they're going to buy at your full price, and then whatever they sell through the warehouse during that time frame, they're going to charge you back for with that discount. Um, and then they're going to add a fee to it, like a processing fee on top of it. And I think the minimum is like $65, and then otherwise it's like a percent of what was sold. But like it's all spelled out in their supplier agreement. So I say like anybody that doesn't read that, like that's just foolish, because they tell you right there like what they're going to do. So if you can, like if it allows for it with your pricing, like I would build that in to your cost. um right, but then you have to think about like KeHE adds their markup, the retailer adds their markup, what's your shelf price going to be, so it might be hard. But like how I think about managing it is, at least within KeHE system, I know not all distributors are as transparent about it, but in KeHE Connect, there's uh, a link in there to KSolve, which is like you can see like by check stub everything that was deducted from it, and you can go in and there's backup documents. So if you ran a promotion, you see okay who ordered, how much did they order, um, and you can track everything. If there was an ad, you get, you know, you see the picture of the ad, like whatever you did. And then I just kind of go through it with a fine tooth comb, and like I'll pull out my check stub and go line by line. Okay, what was this for? What was that for? And then if anything is incorrect, like you can dispute it directly in that portal. So like I can click the link dispute, write my little explanation, and then it goes to their people who then process it. And then you can, you know, you get an email when they respond, you can communicate with them. But I found that's been really effective. And even for things that I'm unsure about, where I'm like, did I agree to that? Or, you know, did I say that they could do this? I'll still dispute it. And then if they have the backup for it, they'll kind of send it back to me and say, yeah, you did agree to this, or a broker agreed to it on your behalf. Or they'll say, okay, you're right. Like, we don't have acknowledgement of this, and they'll refund you. It does take a little bit of time, though, for them to process those refunds. So just something to be aware of. But I would say like just I think going into it knowing these are inevitable, and you know trying to build that into your price if it allows for it, then I would do it. Um, and just being diligent about it, because it can be overwhelming. And I like to do it like weekly, like my Finance Friday, I call it, and I'll like weekly go into the portal, look at it, and make my disputes and do whatever I need to. But then it's nice too, like on my end for like the accounting side of it, like my QuickBooks is set up so that every single chargeback is a line item in my accounting system. So I can go like at the end of the month and say, okay, like what did I spend on trade, and like what part of that was a promotion, what was, you know, um, a retail return credit. So like if something coded on the shelf, like what was I charged back for, and just kind of tracking like what am I spending this money on, just so that going forward, you know, okay, like this is a red flag. I'm spending way too much money on return credits. Like what's going on at the shelf? Like why isn't my product selling? Or, you know, some retailers are notorious for stocking their shelves from the front. So it's like, how do you then get them to rotate that inventory, right? Um, so I think it's just like I really appreciate their transparency around it, and you being able to like dig through it on your own, because like not all distributors are that transparent about it. They'll just kind of like deduct and send you a paper saying how much they deducted and no explanation why.
I think that's amazing. I love your Finance Fridays because having a routine around actually checking and make sure things are going okay, and are
Yeah.
correct is crucial. And that way, you know, like how much money you have coming in, coming out. And
Yeah.
I agree. So working with KeHE, they're very transparent about like what they're actually charging for. And I've gone through KSolve and I use that as well. And they do a really good job of explaining things. And a lot of times you're like, oh, I guess that is a fee, but at least they were transparent about like what it is and why and when it was taken out. And then talking with some of the, you know, KeHE rep recently, they said that, you know, the majority of chargebacks are actually pass throughs from the retailer. And I've definitely experienced that too, where even recently we sold an initial like large order to jewel accounts, and some of the product ended up coating on some of their shelves, and so we got returns actually probably like 20% just from products that they weren't necessarily pushing, but that got pushed back through KeHE for us. And so that was a huge expense that I wasn't expecting, but it wasn't
Yeah.
actually a KeHE charge, or they didn't do anything to damage the product. It was really just at the retail level. And so I think it's
Yeah.
important a lot of times, and let me know if you've seen this too, where we'll get products to a distributor and they're like, okay, that's it. But really, we have to manage those retailer relationships, just as much, not more, because someone wants to explain like the whole point of distribution is that they are warehouses and trucks, and that's the
Yeah.
role of the distributor. And recently, as some like Katie said, they just act as an in-between bank,
Mhm.
but it's really not their responsibility to sell your product. They kind of add that as an additional service over their core, but it's not what
Right.
their core business is.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's so important to know because you're right. Some people do think like, oh, amazing. Like I'm at this distributor now, like my brand's going to blow up. And it's like, well, no, because if you're not out there pushing it, selling it into the retail, like promoting it, making sure you're getting that sell through, like they're going to stop ordering. And I don't know, I think it's different by every category, but like distributors have certain requirements to even keep your product stocked in their warehouse. Like I've been kicked out of warehouses. Like we were in, KeHE has a really small warehouse in St. Augustine, Florida, and sorry, and Vitacost was a client of ours in pulling from St. Augustine, and Vitacost, when they were purchased by Kroger, they left KeHE and they started ordering direct. So like I'm getting POs directly now from Kroger slash Vitacost, and they carried all of our volume in St. Augustine. So my category manager said, "Hey, like your turns are way down. What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, well, now we have a direct relationship with Vitacost. We weren't selling to anybody else out of that warehouse, so we completely got discontinued, and we haven't sold back into it since." So I think it's just like being mindful of, I'm obviously at fault of doing this, like being mindful of when you go into a warehouse, like if it's for one customer, just know that if they back out at any time and they're the bulk of your volume, like you will and can get discontinued from that warehouse. So it's like, how do you protect your business there? Right. And like sell into other retailers that pull out of that warehouse so that if somebody does leave, you still have a good sized business there to keep you active because you pay a lot of money to activate those warehouses. And I forget with KeHE, it's like 50 or maybe $250, something like that per item to open a warehouse. So like you pay to get in and then it sucks like when you get kicked out, like you've put all this money into it and all this effort and then you're like, all right, like we had Vitacost and we probably had a couple other small independents pulling from there, but now we're not in there. So like you lose all that business and it's just like kind of a waste of money. So it can be frustrating, but again, like it's not their job to sell your products, grow your brand for you.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial and so important. Well, this has been great, Brittany. Any closing comments or thoughts that you think are important that we haven't discussed yet?
Um, I guess just like stay on it, like especially when it comes to the chargeback stuff. Like we're obviously small brands, like we can't afford a trade spend analyst or like a deductions manager. So it is painful to do, but I think like setting aside like an hour or so a week just to look at it and dig into it is really important. And then I guess just like hitting home on like it's still up to you, to grow your business at the distributor. Like they're not going to do it for you. So yeah, it's exciting to get in and open up these warehouses, but just like staying on top of it, like really reaching out to the retailers and having that relationship with them too is probably even more important than the distributor.
That's amazing. Well, Brittany, thanks so much for your time and talking about distributors and KeHE today. I know this is going to be extremely helpful to all of our members. So really appreciate it and know you're going to continue to grow with them. So wishing you the best of luck as you continue to grow.
Thank you. Thanks, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you.